Building a finance and development business from the ground up, having left corporate banking, navigating the global financial crisis, and building an organisation that has a culture of innovation and commitment to integrity. They're the challenges that Jason Di Iulio has faced in building his finance business, and he talks about that on this episode of the CEO Advantage podcast with Jason Di Iulio. You won't want to miss this one. Welcome back again to the CEO Advantage podcast. Today we have Jason Di Iulio with us. Jason is the Managing Director of both Finance Mutual Australia and 1835 Property. He's one of the most respected finance and property guys in South Australia, and I'm pleased to call him a friend of mine as well. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Paul.
It's great to have you. Mate, at the beginning of every one of our CEO Advantage podcasts, I ask, what was the first job you got paid for? What was yours?
I was a trolley boy at Coles.
Ha!
Right. So that was always all very interesting, but that was the first job I could find at the time. Quite enjoyable.
Yeah.
Sort of went there from being a trolley boy into the storeroom for a little while. Back at school. It was back in school days.
Yep.
Some time ago.
How old were you?
I think I was 15.
Yep.
15, 16, wouldn't it? Yeah, maybe 16.
We haven't had a trolley boy yet, so well done.
There we go.
Fantastic. So that was while you were still at school?
Yeah.
Then when you finished school, where did you go from there?
I was then a glassy at a hotel close to home. Went to security after that, then behind the bar. And then from there, I mean, look, we've always been in small business. The family's always been in small business. So I was always working in and out of those.
Right.
So you asked about first job I got paid for. I didn't get paid for those.
Yeah, what was that? What were you doing there when you didn't get
my
paid?
mother was a hairdresser at the time, so I used to drive the clients around back and forward it was like pre-Uber. We were the hairdresser Uber. And so we did that for a while, and then we had cafeterias. So I used to work in those, making coffees and serving food, which was all good fun. But so after Coles, went to the pubs, and then from there I was at uni, and then was still working in pubs and working for mum and dad in their various businesses, and then into the ANZ after that. So
what were you studying at uni?
Commerce.
Yep.
So I was the first year of commerce at what was the University of Adelaide back in 91.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you went from working in and around small business and in service roles into banking. What was that like?
That wasn't planned.
Ah.
Now, I'll tell you why that wasn't planned. I mean, I did quite well in your matric, and that was a very structured, private school education. And then you get to this university, and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah,
right. You can do whatever you want, no structure, wherever you want, and that wasn't entirely good for me. So I just enjoyed myself there, had a great time. But when you get your academic transcript back, it doesn't play so well when you're looking for a job in an environment back in those days where jobs in finance, commerce were hard to get. And so
is that the spot? Is that the industry where P's get degrees doesn't help you?
That's it. Right, that's it. So I was looking for work aligned with the degree, and happened to know an accountant that lived down the road from me who said, "Oh, why don't you come and work for me for a little while?" It was an unpaid gig to see if you like it. And I worked out that pathway wasn't for me. And then he said, "Well, I've got a mate at the ANZ. They're looking for staff, and you should go and talk with them." So I ended up being a teller at the ANZ, which I did for, I must have been 18 months, 2 years, and then sort of progressed through the ANZ from that point. So it just happened that I got there. It wasn't a strategic plan, but I quite enjoyed it. And, when I look back, what I learned today is you can trace that back to that sort of 7 or 8 year period back in the bank. I was very fortunate to work with some very smart bankers and had opportunity to work across the bank, learning lots of things which most people wouldn't get the opportunity to do. But back in those days, everyone did everything. And I was very fortunate.
Interesting, isn't it, that with our first job, questions. Going in and being a bank teller and all the things you learn and all of that variety of work that's a dying occupation now with almost no branches.
There's almost no branches anywhere. And I mean, I went to the ANZ the other day, one of the branches that I worked at, and it's very different.
Yeah.
It's very different. I mean, there's no cash anywhere. Yep. So we were all about dispensing and receiving money. It's not about that anymore. It's almost service centres.
Yeah.
So the approach is very different. But they still operate. There aren't many of them though.
Mm. So where did you go from there? Because I mean, your businesses are really successful in development and really successful in finance. They're really well regarded because it's a pretty commoditized, cutthroat industry globally, and so you've managed to keep a good reputation throughout that. But tell us how you went from ANZ and banking into your own business and you achieved success at a pretty young age and a fast rate. So I'd also like to explore some of the ups and downs of experiencing success so quickly and at a young age and how you did that. But tell us about how you went from banking into your own business.
Yeah, so I started in the bank as a teller part-time, so a 12-hour-a-week gig. And that was all good fun, right? Then you went from there, and then I was fortunate enough, and I was half smart and had some experience in small business, and I could deal with people. And my branch manager at the time said, there's a relief job coming up at ANZ at Modbury in the lending centre. You know nothing about it, but they need bums on seats. So would you like to go? Sure, let's give that a go. So, and it was a paradigm shift in salary too, by the way, going part-time teller to a full-time job while I was at uni, and that was only a 12-hour-a-week job process anyway. So that was okay for me. Yeah. So I went up there and learned a bit about lending for a year, and then what then happened was there was another job that came up in the city in head office. They said, you should go and do that. Sure, I don't know anything about that either. So I moved down there and did some commercial banking. And I quite liked that, right? It was sort of it was of interest, right? Whereas the lending we're doing up at Modbury was sort of lower end, wasn't really for me. The commercial property lending was for me, and I quite liked it. So what
was it about it?
Well, I think it was the scale of it, and it was the people, right? So you have, every day someone would come in and be a different person talking about a different thing, achieving an outcome which you could actually develop and see, right? So, property is one of the only businesses in the world where you actually deliver an outcome and you can walk past it for the next 1,000 years, right? And so I was doing property and finance, right? So we're facilitating developments all over town. And so I quite like that. And then, I sort of progressed through the ranks quite quickly. Because, when you're doing something you quite enjoy, it helps. Yeah. And so that was through the early 90s, and then toward the back end of the 90s when ANZ were restructuring their business as a result of all the things that happened in the late 80s and the early 90s. I got a huge promotion into small business banking and did that was very successful at that. And a very small team, built that into a big team. And then by the end of sort of the late 90s, I decided that, I wanted to do this for myself. Mm-hmm. Not so much because I didn't like what I was doing. It was an environment, it was at ANZ, those major corporates are big organisations, and affecting change can be challenging. And so that wasn't for me. Everything I'd done previously, affecting change, was not too difficult. And so I decided that it was time to go and give it a go. And I'd probably, unless I was moving interstate at the time, I'd probably achieve the top tier of where I was going to get to in the bank. So I thought it was just time. And that was sort of late 99 or 2000.
So when you're a young fella, had you pictured growing up in and around small business and doing those sort of things? Is it fair to say that right from the start you didn't picture yourself as a corporate guy staying in the corporate system, or were you not conscious of that? Is that just how in that moment in time, you decided to get out of that corporate world?
Well, it's a little bit more complex than that. So, growing up, I was flying Air Force jets, right? So,
say that again.
Exactly, right? So, ever since I was a little kid, what I was actually going to do was fly fighter jets. Right? So, in year 11, I actually went down to 55 Curry Street, and signed all the forms, got accepted, all that sort of thing. And then for one of, family decisions that everyone said, well, actually, you sure you want to do this? You've got to leave after matric. So I'd gone from knowing exactly the pathway to not knowing any pathway. And so so when you get to uni, you're going, actually, I've just spent the last 10 years knowing exactly what I was actually doing. And this, when this all happened, I selected year 12 subjects I had to then change at the last minute because there was no point in doing the sort of subjects I was planned to do, flying jets, as compared to something else. So I picked a group of subjects that really I knew nothing about at the time, although I knew small business by virtue of the fact that we'd grown up in and around them. And that's sort of how this played out.
This is a classic case of your career turns out to be the job you were doing at uni, not what you were studying at uni.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
wow. So this is you've got to be very successful in banking, thinking about going out on your own, but this was not the plan when you were a young person. This is a plan that's evolved as you go.
As you go.
Fantastic.
It just happened.
Yeah.
It just happened. And, I suspect when you end up in a small business, the things is you need to work hard. Unless you work hard and you're successful, well, it goes bad, right? And so that's the approach that I took through the bank. And then, ultimately I wanted to be on my own and do my own thing, but I didn't really know what that was actually, right? So all I knew was I didn't want to be in a corporate environment where you couldn't do things you wanted to do when you wanted to do them. And, the reporting up and down the system was driving everyone mad at the time, and it wasn't for me. I knew that for sure.
So there's a bit of willfulness in there as well in terms of, because for some people, the safety of that corporate routine and that reporting up and down and doesn't challenge them and actually being not challenged suits them fine.
Yeah.
That's not you.
No. Well, I'm fundamentally, I'm built as a risk taker.
Yeah.
Anyone wants to fly fighter jets is a risk taker. Right? And so that safety and security just wasn't for me. And, what we're talking about, I was maybe 25, 26, 27 years old. So in those days.
You already knew everything.
100%. There was nothing I could learn, right?
Yeah.
So it was time to go and do something. And at the time, finance, it was non-bank finance was embryonic in South Australia. There was no one around. There was a few mortgage brokers, a few finance brokers, and that was about it. And I'd had a view that market segment was so underserviced, and it was on a huge growth path as it was globally. It wasn't here. And I thought, well, just give that a go. And so I just set up, what was then Finance Mutual Australia, still is actually, in January 2000. And
how do you just set up a finance company?
Well, I'd resigned from the bank, Christmas Eve 1999, because it was just a good day to do it. Took a month off, and then thought, well, I actually want to do what I was doing for similar people that I was doing it for, but for myself. And so, and this is at a time when there was no regulatory environment in this sector, so you could just do it. So I, leased an office up at Kenttown, shared it with a couple of psychiatrists and a psychologist. That was the way I could afford at the time, and set up a finance mutual shop, and just started ringing people and saying, look, I'm available to do this. I was doing it, previously at the bank. I'm here to help. And, as that progressed, people just said, well, okay, we'll give it a go. And it was very successful. Very successful. And I'd gone into the niche market segment of commercial property and complex business finance as different to homes and cars and trucks, which I did anyway, but I was focusing on a market segment which anyone who was in that industry in the finance broking game at the time wasn't doing.
Yeah.
Probably because it was too complex or they hadn't done it before, and that's what I was doing. So, and we were just, it was me at the time, just sending client sets back to the banks. I introduced myself to all the other banks, and I sort of knew them through 7 or 8 years that I'd been at the ANZ. And it's this thing built steam and off it went, and became quite a big business, and still is in that sector. Now we're more broader today than we were back then, but that's just the nature of an industry that's gone very embryonic to almost saturation, but now it's regulated and it's far more professional than it should be, and it works well for us.
Yeah. In my 25 years as a CEO, one of the hardest things to find was a consulting and advisory firm where they'd actually been CEOs. I created CEO Advantage to be the advisory firm I was looking for. Go to ceoadvantage.com.au and find out how we can help you and your team be the best in the business. Did you have a vision or an aspiration or a dream that it would be as big as it got, as fast as it got?
I'd always looked at the peers at the time. There weren't many peers, and seeing what they were doing. And back in my bank days, one of the roles that I had was looking after the mortgage broking area. And it always struck me that nothing was professional. They were all very busy. They're all doing very well, but there was no structure around anything. And it was because people were getting packages out of the banks, or retiring and then just finding something else to do. And it was just sort of this collection of people that were just doing things without a vision. And so I'd sort of spent some time in sort of the early 2000 period thinking about, well, what does this look like? Where does this go? And I was quite well read at the time about business structures and process. And I thought, well, you need a vision, you need a plan. And so I spent some time developing that and working out that this market segment that I think no one's servicing is what we should be focusing on, and then doing the other adjunct finance offerings for those clients is what we should do. And that's what we actually did.
Yep.
And it went extremely well.
It was an interesting time in the finance world as well, that late 90s, early 2000s, where the financial institutions were falling over themselves to lend money. I can remember that famous Commonwealth Bank ad where there was a fella in a new car and one of his mates said, "How did you afford that?" And he goes, "Equity, mate." And it was an interesting time where if you had equity in just about anything, the banks couldn't help but throw money at you.
The sales were in our back. So it was a time where banks were just handing money out hand over fist. You just could not help. And the economy was going well. And so we rode that wave for 3 to 5 years. I mean, there was the odd hiccup with .com crashes and whatever, but invariably the market was going crazy.
Yeah.
And we just really benefited from that.
Yeah.
Which was great. So, that went really well.
And then 2007 happened, 2007, 2008. How did that affect the industry and the business you're in?
So interesting. It's an interesting time. So what had happened, this business had started and had grown from 1 to 3 or 4 people at the time. And so it was very efficient, and we're doing really well. And so I decided that we should move from being a consultant or broker or finance consultant into a lender. So we should go into the money lending business. And that's just fell into our lap by virtue of the fact that we had a client who couldn't get money on buying a truck. And so I lent him some money to help him buy this truck. He then became very successful. And I thought, well, there's something in this. And I just started a side business in that. And that sort of progressed from a very small lending business into quite a large lending business over a long period of time. And then I'd started buying other finance businesses that were in and around Adelaide at the time and merging them.
Yeah.
Then comes GFC. So I was the guy buying finance businesses head on into a GFC. Now, that wasn't fun when the GFC comes around because, the banks, they hadn't had to do a lot when it comes to heavy lifting since the late 80s, early 90s. So you get to sort of late 2007, 2008, and Lehman Brothers going broke, GFC's hit, banks are panicked, they're withdrawing funding lines from anyone, and that's what happened to us. And so that period out to 2012 was really tough. Now, some banks behaved well, some banks didn't behave well, but there was a point in time which we were going flat out and having a great time for 10 years, and all of a sudden, you've really got to roll up your sleeves and get into the weeds. And that's what we did. So we came out of the other side of that, and not too many came out the other side of that, quite honestly. It was a tough time.
Yeah.
Came out the other side of that with a solid business, supported by some banks, not all. We just kept going.
So can we stay in that spot for a second? Because it's 2008, 2009, you were a EY Entrepreneur of the Year finalist. So things were, even though the headwinds were starting to blow, you were being recognised as an Entrepreneur of the Year and a leader in the space.
Yeah.
And history shows that leadership meant you survived when many others didn't. So can we just stay in that thing there as far as some of the lessons learned around what helped you survive, not only survive commercially as a business, but survive with your reputation enhanced and not damaged through a period when people's reputations caught up with them, right? All that previous gravy train period caught up with a lot of folks as well. What is it that you would say were some of the lessons learned and the keys to you successfully navigating what for most people in the industry broke them, but you survived? So what happened?
Yeah, I said earlier I was well read. I mean, I'd read a lot of business books and gone to a number of those business courses through that period of time. And one thing that I couldn't shake in my mind was the concept of it was lonely at the top. And so, I was running a very successful business my way. I had no idea whether that way was the right way or the wrong way. I was just running it my way. It was actually really successful. And so what I decided to do was bring some advisors into the business. And so I didn't know anyone at the time. So I went and asked around and found a few Adelaide luminaries who'd been in and around banking and property for a long period of time, and asked them to join a sort of an informal advisory board, which I did.
When was that?
That was back 2005.
Yeah.
Early on. Yeah, early on. And that was really helpful. Now, no one really saw what was coming down the pipe, although one of the board members had come back from London in 2006 and said there's something going on in the markets over there. Not quite sure what it is, but everyone's a bit nervous about stuff. And so, that sort of early commentary, we sort of formed a view that maybe we should make sure that if the market were to contract for whatever reason, we were insulated, and we sort of put process systems in place to do that. But, when you then get into what was GFC, which was, let's hope it never comes back, but that was a really difficult time. And the problem with that time more than anything was invariably the people trying to manage their way through that GFC had never seen a downtime before. Right. And so you had bankers who were flying by the seat of their pants. You had legal experts flying. Everyone was flying by the seat of their pants in an environment where things were happening by the hour, not by the month. And so it was tough. Now, what we did during that time is we took our time. We didn't make rash or hard decisions. We didn't make any decision that wasn't thought through. And we implemented a process of a monthly decision making. And that was not liked by our bankers. And we just said, but we can't make informed decisions because you're making decisions every minute of the day. Every minute of the day, you get an email from a bank saying, we've changed this, we've changed that, we're doing this, we're not doing that. You go, well, when does this stop? So if I do what you told me to do yesterday, and then how do I do what you want me to do today? Because everything's changing. And this is literally what was going on. And so we just said, look, what we're going to do is we're going to meet monthly. We're going to review everything that's happened in the previous month, and we'll make a decision on a path forward. I reckon that saved us, because had we not done that and we were just responding and not thinking, we would have been cooked like most other people.
Yeah.
Right?
A constant theme in our conversations at the moment, and it's happening a lot in businesses and organisations and in government at the moment, is this idea of being busy and smashing through the day. And you're seeing people now talking about burnout and psychosocial hazard and all this. And I find it quite remarkable as well that people talk about, hey, Jason, how are you going? Are you busy? As if busy is a proxy for being good.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about just then, and I think is a lesson and a warning for people is if you're just busy responding to every change every day from the bank, you will fail. What you did was stood back and slowed down and made interval decisions reflecting on it rather than getting caught up in the tumult. Is that is that what you're doing?
This concept of just don't think, just do, which is a narrative you hear all over the place.
All over the place.
And it's
mindlessness.
It's madness.
Yeah.
Right? The concept actually being think, then do.
Yeah.
Right? And the idea of just do, don't think, you can't affect outcomes that way.
Yeah.
I think we proved it. There were many other people who proved it, but people who didn't prove it by just doing. And this concept, and look, the advice you give to people, taking time to think about something. Now, that doesn't mean you think about it forever and decide, well, I just want to think about it and not do something.
Don't procrastinate.
Don't procrastinate, right?
Yeah.
But you've got to be informed.
Yeah.
You've got to just take a step back, look at the broader view and actually, how do we succeed in this segment that we're in? And that's what we did.
Yeah.
And we still do that, right? We won't be pushed to make a rash decision or a fast decision if we haven't thought it through and talked about it. Because in our view, that's just, 25 years ago, whatever times were, numbers in our game were in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. Now they're in the millions or the tens of millions.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're just doing and not thinking, the resulting problem is an exponential problem, and you can't fix it.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, right?
It's interesting in Australia at the moment as well, isn't it, that we've got a productivity, the government's sort of talking about a productivity. It's like, for those old enough to remember Paul Keating talking about productivity, history repeating itself. But interestingly that this idea of doing more with less and squeezing people to within an inch of their exhaustion and going, we're trying to be productive. It's like, that is the least productive, that's the least effective strategy for improving productivity. Taking pressure off people and allowing them to think, allowing them to develop ideas, to create different ways of working won't occur while you've got your foot on their neck.
That's completely correct.
Yeah.
You can't run an effective business in that environment. Now there are plenty of businesses that do that. We threw out the hierarchical approach on day one. We've never done that.
Yeah.
Right. I think we're probably the most efficient finance property business in Australia, I think. Mm-hmm. You don't get to develop $600 or $700 million worth of real estate with under 10 people in your business. Right. We are as efficient as it possibly comes. Now we're not efficient by virtue of burning people out, but we're efficient by saying, how can we help? What tools do you need to help me deliver outcomes? And that's what we do. That's the approach we take. But this idea that you just flog people and within an inch of their life and think that's a good thing and maybe pay them more for the privilege of being flogged into an inch of their life is just dumb.
Yeah.
Right. It's just not a way forward. Right. And it can't be done. People burn out, people lose interest, and it affects your whole team.
Yeah. It's
not a singular problem. It's a broader problem. And you can't build a team environment that way.
They're the same businesses that I'm seeing and the same agencies and departments as well that treat people that way or manage that way who are now saying, surely there's an AI solution for this. It's like, surely we can flog AI, and you think, oh my goodness, no one has delivered good customer service or a good customer outcome when they are being flogged or being substituted with AI. It's still, how are you investing in your humans? How are you getting smarter? How are you getting kinder? And kind is not kind in a wokey kind of I'm a mug kindness, but a kindness in the sense of I'm curious about you. Yeah. I'm curious about building a relationship with you. I'm curious about delivering value for you, because when I deliver value for you, strangely, money will fall out.
Yeah. I know. I mean, this idea, I mean, we've always taken the approach that in every machine, there are cogs, there are wheels, there are bits and pieces that all need to be there to make the machine work. Now, our approach has always been every one of those little components is as important as the big cog, right? It astounds me how many people just think that the only thing in the machine that needs to be there is the big cog, right? It doesn't work that way, right? Everyone needs to be aligned. Everyone needs to be enjoying themselves. Everyone needs to be on a mindset of these are the outcomes we're dealing with. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is how we want to do it. Everyone's as important as each other. And the idea that you can just get an AI piece and replace one of those cogs because we think we can be doing it cheaper, one, I don't think actually works, but it might work. But what does that do to the next person who's looking over that going, actually, what happens to me next week?
I better start looking for a job.
And
withdraw my discretionary effort. I'm not going to do...
Right. I'm not sure I'm any part of this team anymore because they don't need me or next week or whatever. That whole, I mean, no one's really thought that through in my view.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a conversation that all businesses need to have, and how you deploy this AI into businesses. I mean, yes, we use it in analytics, but does that mean we're getting rid of analysts? No. Right. But there are plenty of people going, actually, let's get rid of the analysts and let's get the bot to do it. I just don't think that's a sustainable model.
No, I think the phrase that I used with someone the other day was, I said, if you're not using AI to improve things, what's wrong with you? But if you're then just delivering what AI spits out, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Because it's just a tool for processing things faster or efficiently, whatever that is. But if you're not going to add value to it once you've used it, then anybody can... they don't need you.
That's right.
So where's the value add piece?
Yeah, no.
The other interesting thing I see in this AI or the smashing world is you get people saying, can you come and help us do a strategy? And having been a CEO for 25 years, I've had to work with lots of consultants who are like, let's do a strategy. We'll do a weekend away and we'll dream up some ideas and then we'll put it on paper, and then, which is great. If that's what you want to do, by the way, if you're one of those consultants, good for you. And if you want to employ one of those consultants, good for you too. But it won't work. Because if I pick up on what you're saying, and this, I believe exactly the same as what you were saying, and that is, if the person on reception or if the bookkeeper can't tell you how their job affects the delivery of the strategy of the organisation, you don't have a strategy.
That's right.
If everybody doesn't know how what they do contributes, you don't have a strategy. You just have a glossy document. And I hope you enjoyed the wine on the weekend away.
Yeah. Everyone needs to be on. There's an article I read years ago about, the people on the bus.
Yeah.
If they want to be on the bus, leave them on the bus. If they don't want to be on the bus, they can get them off the bus.
Yeah.
But honestly, you can't run.
Warn them not to walk in front of it.
That's right. But the reality of it is, everyone needs to be aligned. Everyone needs to want to be doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the concept of take your time employing and move to get rid of people quicker is very sensible.
Yeah.
We've got tenure in our organisation of, I think the average staff is 10 or plus years. Right. It's very unusual. Right. It's very unusual. People come, they don't go.
Yeah.
And why does that occur? I think it occurs because we threw the hierarchical thing out years ago, as I said. Everyone's on the same level. We're encouraging people on a daily basis to identify things for improvement, come up with ideas, be involved, and just get involved as you possibly can where it interests you, right? And that might mean you want to go into finance, you want to go into property, into admin, marketing, whatever that might be. But just tell us what you want to do. Let us facilitate that. You can't do that in an environment where you've put everyone in a little box and that's your job and that's your job. And you're talking about, we get AI to merge them all together. Well, why don't you just talk to the people and ask them? I mean, the frontline staff have always got great ideas. Interesting enough, no one ever listens to them, which I can't understand, right? They're dealing with your customers all the time. And it just astounds me as how many businesses try and make decisions without talking to the people on the front line going, can you please tell me why that customer of ours is not happy?
Yeah.
Right.
When we do strategy work at CEO Advantage, some of the first people we go and speak to are the frontline workers and the people on reception and go, can you just tell us all the ideas and suggestions you've been making that nobody's been listening to?
Of course.
And it is astounding how clear their view is. In particular, how clear their view is around what's the experience that our customers are having. Up the top, they have this vision of this is what we intend, but our intentions and our actions don't match. But where the intentions and actions do match is those frontline staff who've got to deliver it. And if you ask them, they know. Yeah.
And look, for me, if I reflect back on my bank days, that was probably the reason that I had to get out. Yeah. Great organisation, lovely people, but someone would come up with a strategy or an idea, and you'd have to try and implement that in an environment where you could make a decision or make a change. Whereas today, if someone's got an idea or a strategy, we want to implement it, we just do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We all talk about it and we all get on board. We all thrash it out. And when we thrash out a strategy decision, everyone's involved.
Yeah.
From admin people to finance people to marketing people, everyone has a go.
So is that how you've mastered many organisations that have got staff that have been around for 10 plus years run the risk of a thing called senior leadership irony, and that is where the longer you're together and the more successful you are, the less capable you become of innovation.
Yeah.
But it sounds like innovation lives in the language every day with you. We're talking to people, we're thinking about things, we're solving things together. Would you say that is part of the secret to your success, the ability to constantly reinvent while keeping the intellectual horsepower of your organisation together?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, what we encourage everyone in our organisation to do is throw ideas up on our common board. Right. Just things they bump into.
So do you have a visible demonstration of...
We do, and we meet every week formally and talk about what people have bumped into the previous week. And that might be, that in our finance business, someone's done a transaction and had an issue or learnt something, and we'll just put that up on the common board and let's kick that around next week on the next time we catch up. And the things that come out of these concepts, one of our property guys has come across a problem on a development. I've gone, I haven't seen this before. Let's talk about how we can turn that into an opportunity next time. And we will talk about, and our finance guys who are involved in the property business get exposure to this thing. And they go, actually, okay, that doesn't relate to my business, but actually the concept of how to deal with that problem does. So I can then use that learning, and that's just dealing with issues. But then we also encourage them, if you stumble over something or something comes across your desk that you think is a really good idea that we're not doing, tell someone about it. Let's have a think about how we can use that. If it's an AI on spreadsheet analysis, okay, well, let's talk about how we implement that. If there's a marketing strategy that you've seen that you think is terrifically innovative, let's talk about how we can use that sort of thing. You can't do that when the top cog in the wheel is making every decision, not listening to everyone else down below, right? That's not us, never has been us, and never will be us as long as I'm in charge of the whole thing.
Excellent.
Right.
If you want more brilliant ideas like that, now's the time for you to hit the subscribe button so you can get more of these ideas on the CEO Advantage podcast. That was incredibly valuable. And it's also one of those small things that large organizations or people who've been inhaling their own smoke for a while forget to do. And that is capture all of those ideas and foster ideas. It sounds to me, though, like you've made ideas safe to have as well, as far as celebrated, encouraged, talked about. So many organisations that that I've seen, people are terrified to bring ideas because of either ridicule or, oh, mate, we tried that before, because there's such inbuilt inertia into an organisation, or the old saying of there's status in the status quo, and status quo loves to kill ideas. Where have you seen people behaving like that, where you're an ideas generation sort of and you're fostering innovation? Where have you seen people operating and building in their own inertia create opportunities for you to come in and grab business and grab customers?
So let me tell you this story. So back in 2000, and I think it was 3 or 4, a friend of mine came to me and said, I've got a business in regional South Australia, and we have a representative office with one of the big insurance companies in our business. He goes, and the insurance company that we're dealing with has said, they want to close all their branches and get someone to manage them for us. I said, what would they want to do that for? He said, I don't really know, but he said, would you like to talk to them? Sure. So I went and met this insurance company at the time, sat with them in their office, and I soon formed the view they were completely inert, lost control of their entire business, and insofar as delivering frontline service was, and we were good at frontline service. And so I put a proposition to them, which was, why don't you just hand the keys over to me and let me have it a go, right? And I'll, give me a period of time to work out how I think it should be done, and let me come back to you with an idea. And they thought, well, what have we got to lose? So I went back to them with a proposition, which was, you've got all of this infrastructure. If you look at how it's all operating, you probably only need half of it. So what we should actually do is, yes, we should close some things. You're going to close the lot. I don't think you should close the lot. Let's close that money. Let's talk to the staff who want to stay. Interesting enough, when you actually went through those interviews and we talked to the staff who wanted to stay, none of them wanted to stay. Right? And I remember having the conversations with 40-year veterans of this organisation. I've just had enough. I can't affect change. I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. Changes are made every minute. No one's talking to us. It's the same thing we talked about earlier. Right?
Yeah.
This is frontline staff. If you want to know how the business is going, you got to go and talk to them.
Yeah.
I remember talking to branch staff in that organisation who couldn't articulate to me what their job actually was. About how long you've been doing this job for? A decade. Great.
So show up, go through the day and go home.
I tick these reports off. I do this, I do that, I do the other. And you go, well, interesting enough, I don't think you need to do it, actually. There's something else you could actually be doing, adding value.
Yeah.
And so we took that opportunity on, we implemented that on behalf of this group, and we ran it for, I think, 18 years. So we've now completely moved that onto an online platform, which is fine too, but we were very good at what we did. I can recall writing as much business with the handful of branches we had with their entire network, right? Because we'd redesigned the branch, we'd made them more friendly. And I come from a banking environment. I knew what a retail branch needed to look like, right? That this group didn't really have that skill set. They were outsourcing that to people who had no idea. And so, we did that, and it was very successful for a very long time. Everyone, did very well out of it, the relationship. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. They had this business model, which was enormous, still is enormous, but every part of it never talked to each other. Right?
Yeah.
There was a CEO or someone of every division. And I remember the challenge we had being in that business, running it, and at their front line. And I'd have these conversations with the different business units, and it was impossible to deliver a new strategy or a new outcome into branch land, because by the time it started up here and everyone had to get their approvals and time it whittled down, and you'd come to us and it'd be, you can't do these things. And I've gone, well, that's the things I asked to do, right? It's only taken 8 weeks for you to come back to tell me you can't do what we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
We've all wasted each other's time. So, and again, it's major corporates, and I get the problems they have, but it's of their own making.
Yeah. There are so many stories of really smart organizations and really smart people doing incredibly stupid things at a small level. I know we felt, when I say we, in my SYC days, we did forklift training as one of the many different training things we did. And we did forklift training. So we had 2 forklifts and, a big a warehouse and all of the different things. And we charged external people an amount to do forklift training. And we had another division of the organisation that did employment services, and they wanted people trained in forklift. So we charged them the same as we charged external customers. I got to work one morning to see a competitor backing his forklifts off a truck to deliver forklift training on our pad in our warehouse. And I went and found the manager of the site and said, what's going on over here? And they're like, oh, he's cheaper. We're charging, I can't remember the numbers, but we're charging $150 and he's charging $120. I was like, but that's a real $120 rather than a nominal $150. Are you crazy? And this person at the time, I can remember going, what do you mean? And it was just one of those, for me in a leadership position at the time, and thinking about what was going on here, I just knew instinctively, rather than yelling at this guy going, are you crazy? How could you get this wrong? I can remember this like a punch in the face going, what have I done wrong that the person running this part of the business says, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What have we done to fail this guy and in doing so fail ourselves that he doesn't understand that? So I remember the next day, we're like, get him off the site for a start, get the competitor out of here for a site. But tomorrow we're getting all of the managers in just to talk about finance and how cash flow works. Because it would be easy, and I think these days people do it. They yell at people and they give them labels, or they call them dummies, or they just do all these different things. They're an idiot. You go, actually regulate for a second and breathe and go, they're probably not an idiot, but they've done something silly, and that something silly is done in an environment that you're in control of.
Yeah.
So
you can't underestimate what people don't know.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of people just assume everyone knows everything.
Yeah.
And you don't know. Yes, people go to uni. Yes, people go through schooling and whatever, but you don't know there are a proliferation of educational systems these days.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't know what they're learning. So, and finance is particularly one of them. Unless you're doing a finance degree or a finance educational process, you don't necessarily understand how finance actually works. And so in that environment, you're probably dealing with someone who's never bumped into it.
Well, finance is such a complex area. I mean, famously, another of our Entrepreneur of the Year alumni, the one that won it in 2019, was a guy with a well-documented international story called Lex Greensill. And you would have been forgiven for thinking that, having had the global financial crisis and all of that collapse, that it wouldn't happen again so quickly. But of course, the collapse of Greensill, but the story that's well documented of Prime Minister Cameron getting involved and so many people falling for the same stories that people heard during the GFC, and they were like, oh, Ponzi schemes and Mader and all of Bernie Madoff, and people wouldn't fall for that again. Fell for it again really quickly.
History repeats itself.
Finance, being in the finance industry and being in the property industry, which you're in, has so many moving parts that it's easy to baffle people with BS. And every now and then you see these great bafflers come out and do that. Apart from being smart, what other, or having the intellect that you have to be able to see it, what are some of the other ways that you're able to navigate so many moving parts and so many ways to get fooled or misread a situation.
I mean, we have a concept in our business, there are no new scams, and I didn't invent that, but someone told me that years ago, and it's true.
Yeah.
Right. So when you think of the history of all those sorts of things you just talked about, they've been going on for centuries.
Yeah.
Thousands of years. They just call them a different thing.
Yeah.
It's the same deal. What we do, and I think we do it well, is when we've decided to do something, we'll go and educate ourselves in the biggest market you can go and find. So if we're doing, we're getting involved in a particular finance area, one of my team will go to the biggest market and go and meet everyone they possibly can and learn everything they possibly can, come back and report it back.
Yeah.
Right. If we're doing, we're doing a big student accommodation development now, that didn't happen overnight. That's 6 years worth of education of what is that? Where do we start? Who do I go and talk to? And so there's been, 6 years worth of, interstate and overseas travel, looking at, like buildings, meeting like operators, understanding how these things are funded, meeting the finance companies, understanding all of those things. And that's not specific to finance, it's specific to everything.
Yeah.
Right. And so I encourage my team all the time, if you've got something that you're doing that you don't know anything about or a bit lack on skill, we don't know the answer, go and find someone who actually knows the answer, go talk to them. Yep. There's a chance they'll talk to you.
Yeah.
Right. There's a chance they might not. But there'll be a way you can research it and get some real life experience. And finance is one of the most complex. As I was to answer your specific question about how you get to the level, understanding what it is and how it works, it comes to going to the biggest markets, the most complex markets, and talking to the people in those markets, understanding the jargon, because it's all language that most people don't understand. It's probably designed that way so people can't understand it. And you learn that and you meet the people, understand how they do what they do. When you come back here, right, you've got a leg up on everyone else to start with. And that's been very beneficial for us over a long period of time. It still is, and we're still doing it.
Yeah.
Right? We're still doing it, learning these things all the time because the environment changes all the time. Markets move, markets shift, particularly after shock events, GFC, capital crunches. I mean, there'll be a huge change that comes after what's happening globally now in finance, equities markets, and which will directly affect everybody. Mm. And so, but we won't know that for some months on how, people are making, you can see it every day, and we took this earlier, every day people are making decisions by the minute.
Yeah. Right?
We've got politicians, we've got government, we've got businesses making decisions by the minute, and no one's actually thinking before acting.
Yeah.
And it's, affecting people down the line who are baffled. They're just putting their head in the sand going, well, I'll wait till it all blows over and then someone can tell me what we should be doing.
Yeah.
And that's not an effective way to run a business.
You can see it in the way that lots and lots of people are behaving at the moment, is waking up in the morning to see what Trump did overnight.
Yeah.
It's like, actually, just don't.
Just don't.
Just don't, because it's just going to distract you for the day from but interestingly, there's a few things that I just want to note from what you said that so few people necessarily do. First of all, and it's something we learned at SYC is somebody's done this before, so go look at it first.
Yeah.
And usually it's overseas. And as South Australians, it's very easy to fall into the trap of being the tallest dwarf.
Yeah.
But going interstate and going overseas and seeing what good looks like and then bringing it back. It's also interesting in a South Australian context is if you do that and you bring it back, apparently you're some kind of messiah.
You're an expert.
You're an expert. It's quite remarkable that you can do that. Though it's incredibly stimulating to do it and you think, oh, I feel like I know what I'm doing now. But apparently it makes you special.
And I'm surprised that people don't do it more.
I'm amazed as well. Right. The other thing that you're doing though that I think people should take away from this conversation as well is you are creating the space to learn. creating the space to reflect. So looking up from your phone, looking up from your emails, looking up from doom scrolling or finding out what Trump's doing, forget that, but pause and reflect, think, learn from the best, look for examples of good practice. They're all things that are often people just are not giving themselves credit for or time for.
Yeah.
Right? This idea of taking time to research before you do something, taking time to think before you act.
Yeah. I mean, we had this conversation before. I mean, I deleted all social media some years ago.
Yeah.
Right. I just don't do it. People say, well, you're mad. You have to do it. It's critical to your business. Sure it is. Right.
Is it critical to your business? Jason, you must be terribly bereft at the moment.
Well, I'm not sure that it is. I mean, we've got a big business we've got a social media platform for our finance business. Our property business doesn't do it at all, actually. And yes, that's just to keep us in touch with our clientele and tell them what we're doing, what's available. But the concept of, getting out of bed at, first thing in the morning and catching up with the Snapchat, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever it's called this week, and spending the first hour of your day down a rabbit hole of most of it's nonsense, and that supposedly adds value to your day, I'm not a subscriber.
Yeah.
Hasn't changed my life not being on it. And the only reason I did it is I found myself one day going down a rabbit hole of nonsense, and I came up from the phone and thought, I've just lost an hour of my life. And none of the things that happened to me in the last hour have had any benefit to me at all, to me, my family, and my business, but I've just lost an hour.
Yeah.
And it was that point I just said, right, I'm out.
Mm.
And I haven't gone back.
Mm.
And, there's a couple of people in my organisation who are that way inclined. There are others who are all into it, whatever suits you.
Yeah.
But it's not adding any value to my business. Not distracting from my business, not being honest, quite frankly.
I was in a conversation. We had a thing. We do a regular event called the CEO's Day Off, and it's just a day, particularly driving in a car, where there's no phone, and there's no face-to-face contact. You're shoulder to shoulder with people with no phone, and it's quite remarkable how quickly conversations shift and improve and get better in an environment where you're not sitting in an agendaed sort of way and you don't have a phone. So it's not hard to get away from it.
Mm.
But in one of those conversations, I was speaking to a man that I've known for a really long time, and one of his bugbears is people that don't have interests. He always asks, what's your interest other than work?
Yep.
And he said one of the things that he's noticed is people saying, I don't really have interests, And he said, surely you've got interests. Like, what do you do when you're not working? And he said one of the things that really frustrates him is when he meets people and say, I just chill. And he's like, what the hell does that mean? You sit on the couch and doom scroll? Like, it's such a, and as we were talking about it, this idea of, I just chill, to me set off almost a sense of dread. I thought I could think of nothing, like I would feel my life ebbing away if I was just chilling, because we live in Adelaide or in South Australia. It's not like we're near the Straits of Hormuz at the moment, or in Iran or Gaza, or like we don't really need to chill that much. There's so much you could be doing,
of course.
But we get trapped in this idea of social media or doom scrolling and all of those different things, but also, as you've said, not getting on a plane, not going and buying a coffee or having lunch with somebody. So you're in the finance business and obviously dealing with property and property developers. It's not a big leap to sort of think see how you got into property.
Mm.
But being in and around property, lending money or arranging finance and doing all those things for property is not taking the punt on doing property.
That's right.
What was the first time you crossed over into doing a development, and how did it go?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So what this came about by, again, going interstate and meeting people. And so we were, back in the 2000s, we were, broking, consulting, lending money. And our money lending business was, in that sort of $500 to $5 million property developer range back in Adelaide, when that was quite a lot of money by virtue of property. And so we were doing that. And then sort of in the late 2008, 10-ish range, I'd gone and caught up with, because we were in the GFC, no one knew what was going on. So I'd gone and caught up with the fund manager in Sydney, and I'd sat down with him. I'd met him previously, and I said, where do you think the world's going? And he said to me, we're going to move our business from the lending of money into direct property development. And I said, why would we do that for? And he said, we've taken the view that the returns that we're getting on lending money, we're taking all the risk, and our clients are taking less of a risk. And so they're making all this profit, and we're just making interest returns. So there's this inverse methodology that we want to be part of. And I thought about that for a little while, and I thought, actually, he's onto something here, because we've got the same problem. Through GFC, we were, all things were going bad. Properties weren't selling, loans were in default. We had to work through all that, and we were doing all the heavy lifting, and our clients were doing very little of the heavy lifting. Some were, but the majority weren't. And so we were in there finishing off property, dealing with builders, dealing with trades, etc. And we'd come out of it, in 2010-ish, reasonably unscathed, but having learned a ton. And I was going back to this conversation that I'd had, a few years before, and thought, actually, he's onto something, and we should look at doing that. And so, in 2010-11, I then decided, actually, how do I do that? How do I get involved in this thing and do it myself? And so, and on scale, I just didn't want to do it a bit here and a bit there. I'm going, if we're going to do this, we're going to actually do this. And one, it was, how do I get access to this market? Two, going to need people. And three, another thing really about it apart from what we've had to do. So there was an education piece, there was a skill set piece, and there was an access to market piece. So we just carved a plan very quickly, that we had to go and meet everyone in Adelaide. Didn't matter who they were, go and talk to them, starting from land brokers to commercial property agents to residential, whoever. Meet the property owners. If you're going to compete in the market segment, I was going to be competing against, let's go and meet them. Find out where they go and meet with them. And then I had to go and find people who wanted to be involved in that market segment, which I did, and I was successful in doing that, saying, who wants to come along for a journey here, and we'll all share some spoils. And that was, that was 2013, 2014. 35 properties now, sort of 10, 12 years old now. It started as a different name, as FMA Capital, because we just had to pick a name.
Yeah.
And then we rebranded it 10 years ago, and it's now the size that it is, out of a simple conversation, which started by virtue of me going to talk to someone about, we're all in this together. We've all got the same problem. How do you think you're getting out of it?
Yeah.
And he was generous enough to say, well, actually, this is how we think we're going to do it. Interesting enough, they've done very well, that business, doing the same thing that we've done. But that's how it came about. And it wasn't a direct strategy. It was, there's an idea there. Let's talk about this idea. We kicked it around. The staff at the time were going, actually, it makes absolute sense. We've just been, we've done 2 or 3 years of really heavy lifting, helping everyone out of a problem, helping ourselves out of these issues. Why don't we just deploy that skill set into this market? And that's what we did.
Jason makes it sound very simple. One of the things, though, that I noticed that you did, and it was a trait that I was fortunate enough to notice early in my career as well, and it's easy just to breeze over. Some of you may have missed it, but the power of asking and then listening and then doing something about what you heard. So many people I find that are immensely successful are, and you used this word, you said it was generous of them. In my experience, though, very successful people are very generous if you ask them. But they're often very busy and they've got other things to do. So they're not walking around saying, I've got some advice to give you for free. But if you ask it, and later in recent years, I heard someone use this phrase, and now I use it all the time, and that is, if you want advice, ask for money. And if you want money, ask for advice. And it's such a great phrase because as I reflect on it, every single time that I have been curious and genuinely asked for advice on how to do something, I've rarely met anybody who hasn't said, oh, here's what you do, and just tell you.
Our business wouldn't be where it is today if we hadn't asked people how they're doing something or how they think we might be able to do something or how we might be able to work together. Right. And you're right. I've rarely found someone who said, I'm not telling you that. Occasionally you get someone who says, oh, it's my IP, I can't give it to you. But eventually they just do anyway because they're going, well, you're going to find out somewhere else. I mean, I think generally people are always, subscribed to the idea that rising tide rises all ships. Right. I think people generally subscribe to that view. We certainly do. Right. I've given advice to competitors of mine. They've come and sent me and said, mate, we've got an issue here, or can you help us out here? And we always do. Very, very rarely have we ever said, look, if it's too close to home, we'd probably say, look, I prefer not to. But in almost every other case, we'll go, yes. When I get LinkedIn posts, my EA gets LinkedIn posts on my social media and says, oh, there's some young kid who's at uni who wants to have a come over chat with you. We always do. There's nothing in that for us, right? Apart from helping some young person who's looked at us and gone, actually, I want to try and do what they do in my future. We'll always talk to them. We get them in, we'll have a coffee with them, they can ask whatever they like. It's just what we do. And we do that because when I've gone and asked people for advice, they've invariably always said, come and see me, we'll have a coffee, talk about it. How can we help? Right. But if you're not doing that, I don't know why you're not doing it.
I think that's right. I think because I think generosity and curiosity are completely connected. And so if you've lost if you've not lost the notion of being generous about answering people's questions or answering university students or speaking to young people, then you lose the other side, which is the curiosity. You're not going to learn anything. People aren't going to bring you ideas because you're not inviting them. You're not generously receiving them as well. Jason, it's been fabulous having you with us. I asked the same question at the end of the interview of everybody, and that is this. Imagine it's one of your rare bad days. You're in a bad mood. People have been at you. Something's happened. It's just in the car. What song comes on the radio that no matter how cross or frustrated you are, it'll make you smile? What's your song?
Good question. So it most likely would be, it's a Van Halen song and it's called Right Now. Come off one of their later albums. It's just a song about being in the moment. And so when you think about that, so what you're talking about is you're driving home, you've had a hell of a day, hell of a week, and it's all the things around you that are causing you the grief, right? Something like that song just makes you think about, actually, I'm just driving home, right? Let's park that, give myself a break, let me have a think. So that would be it. It's always playing in my place.
That's excellent. Great song, great advice. Jason, thank you so much for being part of the podcast. Excellent. Thank you.
No problem.